Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I feel like I should have one of those random questions, like if you could have a superpower, what would it be? Just to start it off. Does anybody have one that they would want?
Superpower. If I can make all the CI automatically pass, make the ecosystem CI always green.
That would be a great superpower. It would be.
I'll counter with making an ecosystem CI that doesn't pass again. There has to be some challenge left, Evan.
Okay. I like it. All right. Well, let's... Oh, okay. This is an interesting one. What led to the decision to build Vite with Rust?
Well, to clarify, we're not rebuilding Vite with Rust. We are porting some of the lower level dependencies that Vite relies on to Rust. So essentially, we always believed, a mixed use of native languages and JavaScript to achieve the best possible trade-offs and balance between performance, ease of contribution, iteration of development, and all that. It's always kind of a trade-off. So in even in its current form, Vite already relies on dependencies that is written in native languages. For example, when you use ESBuild is written in Go, right? So so in a way, this Vite has, from the very beginning, Vite has always been this combination of native parts and the higher level parts that's written in JavaScript or /TypeScript, right? So these different languages have different kind of characteristics. JavaScript and TypeScript are very flexible, fast to iterate with, easier for people to contribute. And it suits well with the higher level work that we do in Vite because things change a lot. We are constantly addressing different needs from different users, dealing with third-party tools, trying to be flexible. So in a way, higher level tasks in Vite is kind of always a moving target. We're always trying to iterate and improve. So we need a language that allows us to do that with the speed and iteration speed, and also allow more people to be involved and contribute, right? But on the other hand, there are lower level tasks that are more well-defined that end users don't really get exposed to too much, right? So for example, how do you transform TypeScript? How do you bundle something? Usually you want something that's stable. It's a pretty well addressed problem in the problem space. So once we know that the requirements for these tasks are kind of pretty stable, we know it's time to use native tools that's written in native languages to get the better performance out of it, right? So essentially, what we're doing, so the specific choice of Rust is mostly because we already have interested team members who have the proficiency to work in Rust. We have people who contributing to Rowdown who previously worked on ISPack. We have a good relationship with our OXC team. So all of these things just put Rust in the right place for us to to do the planned work on. And other than that, I think there's also the need of one of the reasons we want to do this kind of Rust work is because we do believe the lower parts of Vite has gotten to a stage where we need to sort of bring things to into more consistency, because relying on ESBuild and rollup in two separate phases has caused a bunch of issues, and there are things out of our control. But if we can have a bundler that is designed from day one with Vite-specific needs in mind, then overall we would be able to deliver a better performance, better, more efficient system overall, a more unified, more consistent system, and that would benefit all the end users as well.
Very cool. Thank you. Anything anyone else would like to add to that one?
I think in the very beginning, the version of Vite 0.x, it had this system already where it had only one chain where the dev optimizer step was based on rollup as well, but it switched to ES-Build for speed. And so now we are making like kind of a step back, but also a step forward again to get back this unified API so that dev and build are closer and have just one chain to work with. So this is going to be great. I think another natural choice for Rust is because there's already a great selection of low-level crates that give us basic functionality that you would have a hard time getting in some other native languages, or it would be huge. So Rust is basically, it has started from Mozilla, right? So they know the web space very well. So there's a lot of solutions already for problems we would otherwise have. So it's a natural choice, basically.
Yep.
Very cool. Thank you. All right. I know we might skip around a little bit, so be prepared if we have more questions on that. But I love when this question comes up, because it's come up for on quite a few of these conferences when we have the panels. But if somebody wants to convince their boss to go with Vite instead of Webpack, any suggestions?
Try it. There's
you can pull some numbers, like this is how long it takes for you to spin up a Webpack-based version of your app, and this is how long it takes to spin up a Vite version, and this is how long it takes when you hit save to something updating on the screen. You know, compare the numbers and then do the math. You say, okay, we have 5 people on the team, and you switch into Vite would probably save us, you know, like 1 minute every time you restart the project, and it would save you 5 seconds every time you hit save. And I hit save 1,000 times a day. That saves me what, like at least an hour a day, right? So that's like 5 hours saved for the team every single day. You do the math, right? That's saving you money.
Another angle is that you don't mention Webpack or Vite at all. And if you are trying to convince superiors, like probably you shouldn't be building your own framework, and you're just going to use one of the existing one. So like just choose one from the wide selection of framework like Svelte or Nuxt or like any of the like Remix, let's say, and like show why that framework is good. And normally all like most of the frameworks right now are using Vite by default. So like you will get that anyways.
Yeah. Great, thank you. I was going to say, and for whoever asked that question, clip this part of the video and it will help. All right, let's see. Someone struggled configuring Vite with their Rails apps. Any less complicated methods?
I actually just made a tweet like a few days ago. There is a project called Vite Ruby, I believe, that comes with a gem that just configures Vite for you in Rails. So you should definitely check it out. I know this project has existed since very early on days of Vite, and I know it's been pretty well maintained as far as I know. So definitely check it out. It's probably the easiest way to get Vite running with Rails.
Very cool. Thank you. Really quick, just for everyone, I know that we updated the Q&A process. So the Q&A is actually going to be on the live screen side, and then you're able to see it on the right. It's not going to be through the chat. So just as a heads up, in case we're not getting as many questions, we still are getting quite a few, but just in case. Evan, I'll ask you, you have a specific question. As the creator of Vue.js framework, why did you decide to make Vite framework agnostic rather than only for Vue.js projects?
Mostly because at a certain stage, I think at the end of Vite 1, I just realized almost everything I wrote in Vite is not Vue specific, right? So there's really, I guess like the opposite would be there's no good reason to keep Vite Vue specific. Like I just don't think there's a good reason to do that. Like it may like imagine if Vite is Vue only, it may, promote Vue as like, okay, Vue has the best build tool, but that just doesn't sit right with me because this sort of difference is artificial. Like deep down, I know like Vite doesn't have to be framework specific. And it also ties into the reason I do open source is like, I don't work on Vue because I want Vue to be the only framework that exists. I work on Vue because I want to help people build, better web apps. And Vite came out of the reason I work on Vite is the same. I want to help web developers be more productive. And if I can help more than just Vue developers, then I would just do that. That's, yeah. So it's, and I think I'm able to do that mostly because Vue is not a for-profit company. It's not like we have stockholders or board members will be saying like, hey, you're like helping your competitors or something like that. It just doesn't work like that for us, or at least for me.
As a follow-up on that one, did it make it harder or easier to build Vite since it wasn't agnostic to a specific framework?
I think, the upside of making it framework agnostic is now we've actually built a much larger ecosystem, a much larger community than if we kept Vite Vue specific, right? Because now we have all these contributors, framework authors from other frameworks, people in the React ecosystem, people working on Svelte, people working on Astro, they're now all contributing back to Vite, right? And that makes the project actually more sustainable than it is. If I kept it to Vue only, then likely we will only get contributors from within the Vue ecosystem, which is much smaller compared to this cross-framework community.
Great,
I will also add that it kind of forces you to put there the right abstraction sometimes, even if it is a little bit more work, then you have like cleaner things that work for everybody else. So I think it really helps to show which one are the Vue specific things that we push it to, like the Vue plugin, and then like what really is common for everyone to be shared. So I think it's really worth it at the end.
Yeah, I would like to add also that all the different frameworks bring different needs and different inspirations. So the rapid development of Vite and the new features we have, if it was just sourced from the needs of Vue, we wouldn't have the Vite that we have today, or the Vite 6 that is going to be the next version of Vite in the form that we have. And all the communities benefit from this. So it's really a marvel happening before our own eyes. We have almost 1,000 different contributors on Vite core repo today. So I would like to encourage the whole audience to join in on the fun, push this number across 1,000 this year.
Yeah.
Next month, maybe.
Yeah, and I think if we summarize it with one thing, that's probably my philosophy, is that, the web, and especially open source, we shouldn't look at it as a zero-sum game. Like framework competition shouldn't be a zero-sum game. And if, making Vite framework agnostic actually makes everyone better off, then that's the better thing to do.
Can I also add that having Vite as a framework agnostic helps build other tools on top of Vite, like Vitest or Istro, that benefit the whole ecosystem.
Thank you. And I feel like we did lead into this question a bit with the new version coming out, and what's in the pipeline for Vite?
I guess for the short term, Matias can probably talk about like what's upcoming in Vite 6, because we've been working pretty extensively on the environment API and other related things, right?
Yeah. So we haven't really changed much since like the API shape since Vite 2, like this like massive release, like where like Evan put the right pieces in the right place and like Vite took off. We mainly over all the minors and majors like polish Vite a lot, and like really make sure that it was a stable base for all the frameworks and tools to build into. But with Vite 6, we are taking like the opportunity to do a big revision of the API. Mainly, there are two things. One is that Vite Node, that was a project like Puya Parsa, Anthony Fu, and Vladimir, like they developed it while doing Nuxt 3. And then it's right now like the engine of Vitest. And this, what this allows is to run process, like to process modules outside of the Vite server, of the node process of the Vite server. And you can run them in worker thread, you can run them in Miniflare, like in workerd, in like out of the Vite server. And in the process of like Vladimir working in this for a year of like porting this into Vite Core, and this led us to a kind of a full review of the APIs because we needed to integrate it with existing ones. And we always had the idea of two implicit environments, a client and an SSR one. And now we are making them in Vite 6 explicit, allowing frameworks to add more environment if they want. For example, in React Server Components, there is need to have like an extra one. And things like, for example, workerd from Cloudflare, they also want to specify how like workerd works compared to other environments. So yeah, it is like a little bit hard to explain without a lot of like looking at the code and showing examples. But I will advise that everyone that is building a framework or a tool on top of Vite get involved. There is a Vite 6 discussion. Like if you go to our GitHub discussion, you can see the pinned ones. So you can get involved there, see the new proposal. It's full documented. So yeah, that will be like the plan right now is that it is currently in alpha, so you can already try it out. And later on, we are going to release a beta probably in around a month or a little bit more. And maybe for around VidConf in October, like we could release it. But yeah, like we really need everyone building on top of it to get involved because this is our chance to do like the needed like changes in the API for the next stage of like building up. One thing that is important is that we are not going to break anyone. Like the objective of Vite 6 will be to get everyone on board first, and then we are going to opt in like with forward compatibility to like everyone slowly into the new APIs. I think that in shortest term, maybe Bjorn, you can tell a little bit about 5.3, that this is going to happen like even sooner than this because we still have time for a new one more minor.
Yes, yeah. So right now we're in the beta phase for Vite 5.3. So currently we're planning this to be the last minor for Vite 5 before we jump on to the next Vite 6 beta. And I don't think there's much like significant changes in the minor. Trying to be a bit careful, especially we're developing like the environment API, but I'm actually like in parallel. So yeah, once we try iron out, I think sometime this week we will announce like the beta, and then like a week after it will become stable, and then we start preparing for the next Vite 6 and start merging all the big changes that's been working for I think more than a year now. So yeah, we're excited to see what's coming.
Yay! Thank you. It's hard to the next questions. I'm like knowing that of course Vite and Vue are different, yet it's like talking about Vue so much. I'm curious if anyone would want to give an opinion on because somebody's excited that they use Vue, but why does React have more publicity and clients than Vue?
There are many reasons for this, and I think one of the obviously most important reason is there is a first mover and network effect that just makes it really hard to, like the more jobs that are out there, the more people will learn React, and the more people learn React, the more jobs there are. So it's kind of like a first mover advantage for React, and I think the early days the advantage appeared mostly because having a company like Facebook behind the technology definitely lends it credibility to be adopted in larger companies. Makes it easier for larger companies to say, like Facebook is using it. It must be safe adopting this technology. In a way, Vue has always sort of fought the uphill battle in order for larger companies to consider adopting Vue, right? In enterprise, it's much more common to see React and Angular, mostly because of this reason, which is unfortunate. But on the other hand, I'm not really complaining about it. I think it's just the way it is. So in other words, technology adoption in many cases is not out of pure merit, pure technical merit, right? And on the other hand, I think there's also the technical front. React definitely have its benefits. I think in a lot of cases it caters better to developers who are coming from non-traditional front-end backgrounds. So if you started learning programming with front end, you started with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you'll likely find Vue and Svelte much more friendly, much easier to get into. But I've also heard a lot of people who basically express the opinion of funny enough, on Twitter, sometimes I see a developer say, "Oh, I find Vue much easier than React," right? But I also see developers saying the exact opposite. Someone would say, "I find the React much easier to understand than Vue." And when I dig into it, I realize, these people who think React is simpler actually come from more traditional backend language background, or more sort of functional programming background, where they just prefer to have everything abstracted in the same language. They don't want to have to think about HTML, CSS. They treat the web as kind of a lower level target, and React just abstracts the way for them. Different mental models click for different people. I think that's one thing. So if you compare I think web and JavaScript in general has grown very rapidly over the past 10 years, and that attracted a lot of developers who were previously not front-end developers to get into JavaScript and front-end or full-stack JavaScript. And a lot of them would just pick up React because in some way it does make it easier for them to transition from their previous mental model into front-end, right? I think so. All of these reasons combined just creates this dynamics. And also, but I think the most important one is once React has established its leading position, it just creates this sort of self-fulfilling cycle of people hire for React, thus people learn React, and because there are a lot of more people who know React, people think it's easier to hire for React. But at the same time, as the author of Vue, obviously I will have to say, it is different frameworks have different learning curves, right? You might think you have to React is easier to hire for because more people have learned it, but on the contrary, I would say frameworks that are easier to pick up, like Vue or Svelte, you would have an easier time training someone on the spot. So you don't have to actually hire an expert in Vue or in Svelte. You can just hire someone who knows JavaScript really well, and you can train them. If they know front end, they can pick up the framework really fast, right? On the contrary, I think React is deceivingly simple in the beginning, but at the later stages, there are a bit more, there are a lot more intricacies you need to fully understand to really be proficient in React. Like when you get into the more advanced cases, there's just more things that you kind of need to wrap your head around compared to in the beginning. So that is my opinion. So yeah, so mostly it's I think it's mostly driven by the job market and just like economic demand.
I want to add that from a perspective of Vite. Vite doesn't really have to care because there are great plugins for React too. And just recently, I think someone announced that Create React app is going to have a reincarnation using Vite. So you don't if you choose React to build your application for whatever reason, you can still use Vite too. So, yay.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think something that's a great call out too is since it is something that like people look for specific React knowledge and to hire React there's so many people in the React world that it does make it seem like it is the needed one or something, but the community in Vue and Svelte is, I feel, much more connected because it's not as mass as like React is with and much more of a community there. So that's one thing I like about the two.
Yeah, I think the React community is huge. I would say there are definitely great people in the React community, and has been historically very, very creative. Like a lot of great ideas, great projects in there. But yeah, I mean, it's the trade-off, right? Like a bigger ecosystem often kind of leads to a lot of they're good competition, but there's also this kind of like 10 different solutions for the same problem, and 8 of them got abandoned along the way. And it creates kind of like this difficulty of choosing the best solution and all that. Whereas a tighter knit community will have more commonly agreed on solutions to the most common problems. Like one of the things I really like in the Vue ecosystem is Vue use. It's just like once we had composition API, everybody just decided Vue use is going to be the place where we contribute all these reusable composables, and that has, I think, that's one of the things that I'm mostly happy about the Vue ecosystem. Like, I personally I'm just super happy to have something like Vue use that exists, and it's not like there are 10 different hooks libraries that each of them is slightly different.
Thank you for that. All right, switching over back to Vite. What's being done to make Vite log error in the terminal like Webpack?
Well, this is kind of vague.
Yeah, like if it is like the errors in the console, like there is a Vite plugin terminal that you can add to Vite, and it will like get everything that you do in the console in the browser to the terminal. But if not, we already log proper errors in the console.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the terminal.
And also we have a nice overlay in the browser as well if you don't want to spot your console all the time. So, but if there's anything you're missing in error handling in Vite, our community is very open a feature request on Vite's GitHub, come to our Discord and discuss in the contributing channel. Create a plugin to enhance the experience for everyone.
Great, thank you. All right. Is it possible to use Vue in extension browser to manipulate and get CSS selectors? Silence from the crowd. Does that mean that's a maybe?
Vue in extension to manipulate it. I'm not sure if I understand the question, to be honest.
I was gonna say, would this be like part of inspect? But I'm not quite sure. We might need to get clarification on whoever asked this question. Maybe ask it in another way, and we'll see if we can follow up with that one. Let's see. How much faster is build time of the Angular V8? Anyone know? Compared to a past one? Or
I'm not sure if you're asking the right people.
Yeah, that's why I'm going through our questions and I'm like.
But Angular use Vite now, so that is good.
Not for build though, so
yes,
still irrelevant.
Yeah,
I talked with several people in the Angular team that were kind of like very eager to try like Vite everywhere, but it's a very, very long process. Like at the beginning, we saw that will never even start. So like it is.
Yeah, so Minko mentioned Angular wants to move into a more incrementally adaptable sort of structure, which likely means if Angular will be restructured, sort of destructured so much that it can become Vite plugins, that would be a very interesting future. I mean, there is analog JS, which is fully Vite based. Although I'm not sure how easy it would be Angular proper to move fully to Vite. But I'm actually going to meet Minko next week in Amsterdam, so I'll ask him that.
Great. Thank you. So more info to come on that one. And again, this is more of like a Vue than a Vite, I believe, on vapor mode being safe to use on a machine.
Of course it's safe. Why would it be unsafe? It's not like we're mining Bitcoin.
No.
Don't spoil this.
Okay. Good to know. All right. If someone would like to contribute to Vite and Vue, there's hardly any good first issues. How do they know how to start regardless?
It's a bit difficult for me to say now because like the project has grown so much. I guess the scope has really expanded a lot. I would say maybe start with the docs. That's how Matias got started.
Yeah. I think that looking at trying to do maybe like fixing an issue right away is maybe not the right strategy. Like we don't use, for example, good for issue labels in Vite because it is kind of hard. You get maybe like a lot of people looking at these things and everything is complex in itself, let's say. Or everything could be a good for issue. But I think that the best way is, like as Evan said, like, or start with the docs or go to Discord and try to help other people, or maybe like go to the issues but not try to solve them, but try to help us triaging. So like you can actually check if the reproduction is good or if you can improve on the reproduction to make it more minimal. Or a lot of the time the reproduction shows that it's just a config problem, and then you can say, hey, this issue can be closed. So like maintainers will be very happy that you help them. And that naturally leads to you learning more about Vite and Vue. And later on, like possibilities, like you will start to understand what is a good fair issue for you later on. Like you will see an issue and you will see, oh, I think I can help move this forward. So yeah, I think that not focusing on doing PRs is very good at the beginning.
Yeah, and I think in Vite, like if you really want to fix issues, like we use contribution welcome as a label. So those I think are for like even slightly harder issues if you want to like have a thing that you want to try out and see if you can solve it. But very rarely we might label something as good first issues, which should be really easy. But yeah, if you want some challenge, I think maybe if you can try out the contribution welcome issues. But yeah, it will be a bit tricky. But yeah, if you still want to try it out and you have questions, we are always open in the contributing channel in the Vite Discord.
Yeah, I think also if you have problems and want to solve them building your own Vite plugins, just using Vite is a great way to learn more about how it works. So if you want to start contributing to Vite, then you already have some experience. So looking at projects that are close to Vite, but not Vite Core itself, or look at dependencies of Vite sometimes also helps you to get closer to the ecosystem. I came to Vite through Svelte and building Vite plugin Svelte. So if there's a plugin you are interested in building, then finding your way to Vite Core and helping out there is a good way too. So I have to second Matias here, like jumping straight to Vite Core and looking at the most favorited issue is probably going to be a very hard thing. Like take smaller steps to move closer. And we are very helpful though, so feel free to ping me or anyone anytime in the Vite Discord. Like not at Evan probably because that's not fair. But we'll get out and talk to you if you post a question.
I like the call out of not asking Evan, because I can only imagine Evan probably gets like hundreds of messages per day. This is actually one of my favorite questions of like, I would say any new updates to Vite that have gone unnoticed, but like, I want to add to this question of, are there favorite pieces of Vite that go unnoticed that you wish more people knew about?
I prefer import meta globe to dynamic imports. For example, like a lot of people usually ask, like, why does identifier like a constant in an import doesn't work, something like that, and they don't know that there is this feature called import meta globe that can dynamically import what you need.
All right.
I'd have to say async configuration. I did a talk in Amsterdam about it. It's a great way to customize Vite without even bringing a plugin. It's not very known that you can have configuration that is loaded async. But it's been there a long time. It's not a new feature.
That's why I wanted to ask if there were features that were like already there but aren't noticed very often, because they are, if they're not noticed, people may not realize like what went into them or what made it more usable that people may not realize.
I will ask Vladimir maybe to talk about Vitest browser mode, because I don't know if there is going to be a Vitest question. And it's like, there was a big tweet yesterday that was noticed, but I don't think enough people know about it. So like maybe just a few words there is good.
Technically, it is a Vite question. Yeah, so Vitest had a browser mode for a long time now, for over a year, maybe even more. But it wasn't really developed much. It was just a way to show that we are interested in this. But now we are like overhauling the whole system, making it easy to test in the browser, making it easy to test even without like Playwright, and like just having a browser is enough to test your code, to see your code, how it goes through different stages. So I would just recommend checking out our Twitter at Vitest Dev, I think, or at Mastodon also Vitest Dev, just to get the link to the browser mode announcement. Yeah.
Thank you.
I think
that definitely sounds
one
cool.
feature, sorry, there's one feature I think that we don't talk about, I think, is shrinking the Vite package size. So every so often, like we like contribute to like downstream packages, or we try to refactor our code to reuse less packages. So for example, in Safi recently tried to refactor away using Acorn, so the package size shrink a little bit. And Arnold also tried to remove some YAML dependencies in PostGIS load config so that the package shrink a bit. So it's not usually something you notice, but yeah, it saves a little bit of space and time whenever you download Vite, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Overall, I think one of the cool thing about Vite lately is like these major releases like Vite 5 are almost unceremonial. Like it's very stable and easy to upgrade between these versions. And I think that's a good thing. And on the other hand, it's been consistently getting faster. If you look at the past, like all the minor releases, every release there's some performance improvements, just gets the number lower, you know. So it's oftentimes these things that's not really like shiny new features, but it's this kind of consistent improvement over time that just compare Vite 2 versus Vite 5. You know, the gap is actually pretty astonishing.
Yeah. Also, the stability or the way that frameworks have an easy time to upgrade to newer Vite versions is great. So if you look at the usage of Vite major versions over time, you see that the adoption of new majors is really fast. And some frameworks even release support for a new major of Vite on the same day of Vite or even just a few days behind. So that shows that we take great care and planning to make sure that no one is left behind and everybody can enjoy the latest version and all these upgrades that have been talked about today already immediately without breaking everyone's hard work in the process.
One thing there that, like, shout out to Dominik for all the work he did in Vite ecosystem CI, because that is something that not many users notice, but is what enables like all this kind of like smooth pace that we have, like fast but very smooth upgrade path, because it let us test like 25, I think we are right now, like of our main downstream dependencies on every PR that we consider that like we should get a good feedback there, or like every time that we are going to do a release, we first check that we are not breaking anyone. So that this really changed the way we work with the ecosystem. And yeah, so I think that I don't, this is not something users notice, but like at the end, like they get the benefits.
Thank you. And this does lead in to the next question pretty well. How do you plan your feature or next releases? Like, what goes into planning what the major changes are?
I think a lot of it has been driven in Vite, at least for like from the needs of the ecosystem, because that's our main users. Like we normally, like there is people that are using vanilla Vite, but like normally they will use it with other ecosystem tools. And they're normally like, yeah, I don't know, for example, Cloudflare now had the need to try to make it easier to have like workerd as a like environment that any framework can adopt without every framework needing to re-implement everything from scratch. That is right now the situation that we have. So that was like one clear push for us to work on environment API. And in the same way, like there are like other needs like that we are constantly getting. We have like a very close feedback loop with everyone in like that is maintainer of a big project, that they are constantly telling us like what they need. So I think that influence a lot what is next. Then I think like there is these other bigger arcs like what Evan is working with roll down.
Yeah. So there's I think the reason we started all this like roll down and lower level Rust work is because we constantly hear the feedback about certain issues like dev prod consistency, production build speed, and also people want like native module federation. People want advanced chunk splitting control. These things are typically not possible. So previously, because Vite sits on top of ES-Build and Rollup, right? A lot of these feature requests are just not feasible at the layer that we typically work at, which is why we're expanding down to address these more, more sort of substantial tasks that takes a much longer time planning to do. So basically, we have like these two parallel lines where there are the current Vite minors and majors that's focused on the framework support and API design, and then there's this lower level line where it's like addressing these more fundamental problems that can only be solved with more substantial work in replacing these internal pieces. Yeah. So yeah, short-term needs driven by the framework authors and long-term needs driven by some of the feedback that we've been hearing from day one.
Yeah.
Cool.
In regards to majors, we don't have like a fixed schedule where we say on the 1st of June and the 1st of December we release a major, but there is like the spirit of not holding out for 3 or 4 years for the next major. We will try to push new majors at least once a year, I'd say, maybe a little bit more frequent, but it's not that we have a schedule and we say we have to release a major now because the schedule says so. It's more feature driven, and as described, the features come either from frameworks or from bigger architectural work we are doing. But even that architectural work is inspired by the needs of our users. So Vite is not like something that fulfills itself. It's something that's built by the community for the community, basically. So we try to make sure these needs are met. If you have needs that are not met, make yourself heard. Try to help us find a way to make those needs met. The environment API that has been mentioned, for example, is going to enable many frameworks to refactor some of their internals to be more stable and more aligned and reuse what Cloudflare is doing with Workerd. Vite Ruby was mentioned earlier. They might also be able to have some kind of environment to abstract their use. So these new APIs we are building right now are setting a more a broader foundation to build larger applications or combinations of applications. So in the future, we are going to see more feature-related changes, I think. Again, right now it's more lower level in infrastructure, but after the environment API and roll-down has landed, it's probably more features. And I'm like, I can't wait to see what all of you come up with and suggest. It's a very open space, and Vite has been growing fast. I hope it grows even faster.
I love the call out there for people to contribute. That's great. All right. Are there any long-term plans for module federation in Vite?
Yes. So that's gonna be, by extension, be a feature in Rolldown. So that will take a while. We are just getting into the more app-oriented features in Rolldown. So it's kind of like, I'll basically take this as an opportunity for a short Rolldown update. So we are now pretty much at feature parity with ES Build, except for the transform features. Basic bundling, tree shaking, mixed ESM and CDS support. I was actually migrating the Vue bundling parts to Rolldown the other day, and I was able to get the build running. Obviously, encountered a bunch of small issues, which we've opened issues and trying to fix. But if we use Rolldown only for library bundling, it's we've got most of the things we need for library bundling already there. So the next step is really getting into better output for application bundling. So that also involves advanced chunk splitting. Module federation is going to be in the roadmap, and I think advanced chunk splitting is probably the more important first step, because that involves addressing some of the shortcomings of the way that rollup outputs the chunks. Like the strategy where you put everything in pure ESM in the same scope actually creates limitations when you want to do more advanced chunk splitting control. So we're actually looking at how to better solve that problem at the moment. But in short, we do want Rolldown to eventually provide the same level of control that you'd expect. Basically the same level of control you'd have of your production assets for an application in production that you'd previously expect from Webpack, but with the same ease of use of Rollup. So that is the goal. But today, I believe there is a Vite plugin that allows you to do module federation, even with today's Vite. It's not first party, so basically, we know that there is a plugin that exists. It's not maintained by the Vite team, but you can try it out, see if it fits your needs.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
also I think there's an issue a while ago that I think many people want module federation Vite, and I think someone mentioned the Vite plugin federation is unmaintained. So I guess right now, like how Vite usually works is community based. So if someone is interested, then Vite could have module federation or even tighten or there's even better Vite plugin that will work. But since most of the team have that special interest in different parts of Vite and not necessarily in module federation, then yeah, we don't really have the knowledge to implement module federation. So yeah, this is one of the things where we could benefit if someone has more knowledge on it, wants to help out supporting it in Vite.
Yeah, module federation is, I would say, it's a very specific area of a concern where, it's usually you only need it when you work in a specific team environment, and you do need people who have understanding of this feature to be able to work on it. Luckily, the Rowdown team actually, who previously worked on RS Pack, and they've dealt with module federation in the past. So basically, the Rowdown team has the necessary expertise to actually build this as a first-party feature in Rowdown. So that's going to happen.
Yeah, I would like to add that I guess like 95 to 98% of the audience don't need module federation at all to build their products and applications. This is really like for pretty large applications, Vite is fine. I can speak from experience here. So yes, there are applications that benefit from module federation, and it will be great to have it at one point. But don't miss out on Vite just because it's only a third-party plugin right now. It's really a big, complicated tool for big, complicated applications.
That's a great call out. All right, a couple more questions to go. What are your tips to create front-end microservices with Vite and make it easier migration from Webpack? Or is it possible for an integration between the two?
I would say if you're looking for microservices, I guess the best bet is to wait for a native module federation in Vite. But other than that, there are a bunch of other microservices solutions, micro front-end solutions out there. And to be honest, I'm not too familiar with them. But I assume if they're not using module federation, then they should be built tool agnostic, or at least I hope so. So, but I would say if I guess the best thing to do is just wait for Vite to eventually have module federation. That's probably the safest bet. Yeah.
Okay. Next one is, I like this because, AI is everything right now. So will you try to implement AI tooling into Vite to optimize performance even more? Or is it just for the sake of a trend? Like, what's the plan with AI?
Not really. We don't have any plans around AI. We're not like, we don't need to latch onto the AI hype just to raise money or something. It's like, it's not like that.
Yeah, we are discussing how to cope with people sending us AI-based pull requests, descriptions, and things like that, and spamming our own repos.
Okay. Let's end on this one because I think it'll be a nice one for a high-level overview of. They use Vite in a Svelte project. I'm not sure what it's actually doing behind the scenes. Could we get a high-level summary of what it does and how?
Oh, so Bjorn, do you want to take this one?
Me?
Yeah.
The first thing I remember is Batak having like a long bookmark with links to YouTube about what Vite is going on. But yeah, I think like in the Vite with a Svelte project, it's basically Vite and the Vite plugin Svelte that tries to make everything work so that you get the Vite experience with Svelte support. Or if you use Svelte Kit, there's like a lot of internal Vite plugins, so it's Vite plugins all the way down. And yeah, Vite does what it shows in the features page, just that it can work with Svelte and any other frameworks.
Yeah.
Can I just add that if you want to see what's happening with your files, you can install Vite plugin inspect to see everything that every plugin does, how it's transformed.
Yeah,
And it's
plugins
going to be updated for Vite 6. I think it's already updated for Vite 6.
Yeah, that is a good one for a feature that is unnoticed. Like we should actually make it maybe into core directly.
Yeah. Anthony did another great thing there. It really works well with Svelte as well, because like Bjorn mentioned, Svelte and SvelteKit are Vite plugins all the way down, so you can see what's happening. Ping me on Discord if you want to know more. I can tell you hours on end what's going on. But the good thing is you don't really have to know. You can just use it and be happy.
I do love that. I do think that's one of the things that I love most about Vite is you don't always have to know what goes into it to just like trust it and appreciate it. So thank you for that. And that was our last question. So thank you all for joining us today. We greatly appreciate it and looking forward to seeing you at the next conference. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.